The first stage in burning your photo emulsion silkscreen is to clean the glass off the exposing unit. You're going to spray the glass cleaner onto a rag and then clean the glass to make sure that there isn't any dirt or dust on the glass. Anything that you don't remove from the glass is going to block out the light and can affect the burning of your screen. The way I like to do this is I turn off the lights in the room, turn the light on in the exposing unit, and then clean the glass. The next step is to check your transparency. So after you've cleaned the glass, lay your transparency onto the glass of the exposing unit and check the opacity of your transparency. If you can see a lot of light coming through, then your transparency will not be opaque enough and you need to print out another transparency and double them up. The next stage is to take out your screen with the dry emulsion. It needs to be perfectly dry. Again, I'm using safe lights here. So if you're doing this, you need to make sure you're doing safe light. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to center my transparency on the emulsion for the screen and tape it down. Again, make sure the emulsion is completely dry, otherwise it's going to stick to the exposing unit. With this exposing unit, it's vital that the frame of the screen is touching the tube in the back that creates the suction for the vacuum. If you do not have good contact back there between that tube and the frame, then you will not get a proper vacuum seal, and what will happen is that light will slip between the transparency and the emulsion, and you will not get a good burn. It will be slightly gray, it can even be slightly fuzzy. So I've turned on the vacuum and you can see the frame now starting to appear in the vacuum blanket. There's a rubber blanket there that is part of the exposing unit. So when I can see that there's full vacuum, at that time and only at that time will I turn the exposing unit on. I've done a number of test screens with this emulsion and all the setup, and I know that my timer needs to be on 3 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes and then I'm going to start my timer. So I've burnt my screen and now it's time to wash out my screen. This isn't a time for you to use the pressure washer. You're just going to use some type of faucet that has a hose attached. In this classroom we have a hose with a spray nozzle on the end, and you don't want too much strength when you do this in the pressure of the water, because what you can do is literally just blow the emulsion off, and you obviously don't want to do that. So you're just going to lightly spray the emulsion, and you will know pretty soon if the emulsion came up correctly, if you had a good time, and if you put the emulsion on right, and all that kind of stuff. If you don't start to see your image coming through the screen, then something's gone wrong. Maybe you exposed the screen to light, or perhaps you doubled up your transparency and you needed more than a 3-minute burn in the exposing unit. If you doubled up your transparency, then you should have produced a test screen before you went to your final screen to test your time, because you're dealing with a different series of factors than what I've prepared for you. While you're washing out your screen with the water, you can slightly abrade it with your hand. Don't use your fingernails. I don't like to use a brush. I just use my hand. If it's not coming out, if you're really scrubbing really hard with your hand, then again, perhaps you've done something wrong. You know that the screen is finished with being washed out when you can hold it up to the light and you can clearly see through all of the image area without any emulsion being visible. At that time, and only at that time, are you done washing out the screen. So you want to make sure that you spend the proper amount of time here cleaning out your screen, because anything that you miss, once you post-expose your screen, it's there, and that's going to affect the printing of your image. So I prefer that you always burn your screens during the day because when you go to do the last step, which is the post-exposing, all you need to do is take it outside and put it in the sunlight. I'd rather you do that than to post-expose using the exposing unit. Will you be able to post-expose an exposing unit? Yes, but I would prefer for you to do it outside because your screen's going to be wet, and placing that wet screen into the exposing unit can cause other factors to take place if you don't clean up, or if there's some emulsion there that is sticky, that sticks to the blankets and all kinds of things. So I'd rather you just take it outside and put it in the direct sunlight for somewhere between 10 minutes to 30 minutes. Our final step after this is to do some printing. Before you switch on the overhead lights, make sure that no one else has any photosensitive materials out. Make sure you close the drying cabinet properly. Make sure that everything has been put away before you switch on the lights. One last thought I just want to bring up, I know you're not looking at anything on the screen, but is that you saw that I had my transparency in a cardboard folio. You want to keep your transparencies away from water and moisture. So always make sure that you don't just leave them out, because if people are doing the washout, like right here, then water is splashing around and it can get on your transparency, and those inkjet transparencies can bleed very easily.